Hey, happy Monday, everybody. You're right here with Paranormally Blonde on KUNX Digital Broadcasting. Also, the OnX, the network, OnX Network, your new mainstream. Okay, try to spit that out tonight. Wow, my Mondays, right?
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. Hey, Dee Dee, how have you been?
Good. How
You
about
had
you?
a fun weekend. I know I
I
can't
did.
wait to dig into this a little bit. But before we get going on that, let's just say hi to everybody on the side there. We've got our Get Haunted family. Like always, we have Rob and Kyle. I see Travis. I see Michael. I see Bill. Hey, Bill. That's Empty Casket and Get Haunted. Um, yeah, this is like a week. Weekends are coming and going really fast. Like, how is it? Hello, October.
Right.
Are we? October 3rd. Like, oh my
Yeah.
God. Like before you know it, right? Everybody's gearing up for the big October spooky season. I see that being said everywhere, right? It's this
Yeah.
big month for paranormal people and horror movie fans. So that's kind of exciting. Speaking of tomorrow, join us on Paranormally Blonde YouTube. We will be sitting down with High Spirits of Palmerton Paranormal, who has the amazing location of the set that was used for Hell House LLC and the director of the location and the first Hell House movie,
Oh,
Angela. So join us
so
tomorrow
cool.
for all things Hell House, which is I'm so geeked out about
I
this.
am too, because I watched the movie because of you. I don't know how many times you've mentioned it, and I finally sat down and
Yeah.
watched it, and I did scream a couple of times.
See, it's a creepy movie, right?
Yeah,
It's
it
just the
is.
right amount, not
Yes.
really gore. There's no gore. There's no like,
Right.
it just really gets you freaked out.
Yeah.
So come join for a little chit chat with that. We're going to have some fun there. But let's talk about what you got to do for the first time this weekend.
Well, I got to go to the OC Paracon, and it's brand new. It was their first year. And so it was also my first Paracon. Believe it or not, I've never been to one because they're always in the East,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I got to go. So it was like first. So that was
Yeah.
kind of cool. And then I got to see Rick
Our
in
good
person.
friend. Yeah, our good
And that
friend
was
Rick
so
McCallum.
cool.
Did everybody see that picture? It's so adorable of Rick and Dee Dee. I love that he finally got to meet one of the blondes in person.
Yes. Yeah. He's so sweet. And if you ever see him at something, definitely go and see him. He's so sweet. And his lecture was so interesting. He shared EVPs and
Mm.
just, it was really cool. And then I also got to meet Patty Negretti or Negri because I've liked her for a really long time and I've seen her book go by and stuff. And so I got to like buy the book from her and she
Oh,
signed
good.
it. And she's so
Oh,
sweet too. And she even like, we were only talking for a few minutes and I was talking about my fear. And she totally gave me like solid, good advice right there off the cuff. And then
oh,
even include a little bit about fear in her lecture. And I've never seen her lecture before, but
yeah.
I was like, this is so cool. So
Oh,
I
I'm so,
loved it. So I'm going next year and I hope
yeah.
to see everybody there.
And hopefully that grows. It was their first year, so
Yeah.
sometimes, right, they got to start off small and then they just grow it from there. I'm
Yep.
excited. I get to go to my first official one as well. Mid Michigan is November 4th, so I'm excited to see what that's all about. It's just interesting. It's not just meeting the people who are there as vendors and speakers, but it's the people watching, right?
Oh,
It's who
yeah.
comes to these. These are
It is
amazing things.
interesting.
So
Yeah.
this was strictly Paracon. This was just paranormal.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
all authors. I got to talk to a couple of authors, people who were like ran haunted locations. It was a really interesting guy. And you can go to OC Paracon and see who all the people are.
Okay.
Uh, Great conversations I had with people. People were really
Right.
open to like just asking questions and giving great answers. So it was great for me because I got to stop at each booth and talk to people, and I
Yeah.
loved it.
Uh-oh, the blondes are getting out, people. Uh-oh, watch
Wants me
out.
out.
We're going to be ramping up for 2023. Michael, to answer your question, tomorrow the show is at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So it's a little bit different than you're used to, just 8 p.m. Eastern time for Paranormally Blonde with Hell House LLC and High Spirits of Palmerton. Hey, D Hood. I did not watch that show yet with Miranda, but it's okay because
Oh,
guess what? Tonight we have Miss Miranda with us, and
yeah.
I am so excited to have our dear friend and the ghost biker herself, Miss Miranda Young. Hey, Miranda. Oh no, she's muted. You're muted.
Oh, let's see.
We don't want to mute Miranda.
I didn't mute her.
There you go.
Can we hear you?
Have
Oh,
technical difficulties, when you do show from a haunted location, you never know what's going to happen.
That's right. You never know. Well, hi, Miranda. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you, ladies, so much for having me on today.
Well, welcome back. You know, we love your favorite brunette, as I mentioned right there on my post today. It was like, gotta have Miranda on.
Yeah.
Before we get started, because we want to have a little chit chat about the life of content creators. But before we get started with that, how have you been? You've been a busy little bee.
I have, we're ramping up, you mentioned October and getting ready for Halloween and everything. So getting ready for the release of season 5, which, all seasons are, big when in the release, but season 5, something a little special here. So
this one's a good one. Like, they're all amazing. Like, we all know Ghost Biker seasons are amazing. This one though, you're right. This one is really cool. If you guys haven't seen her trailer, I did post the trailer because it's really badass.
Thank you.
But we're allowed to say what it's about, right? This year?
Sure. Absolutely.
Jails and prisons, right? Jails and
all county jails.
I love that. It's going to be so awesome.
Yeah, I've done some prisons in the past, Brushy Mountain State Prison is one of my favorites, but doing something a little different. A lot of people don't necessarily realize that there is a difference between the county jail and a prison. And so very excited to not only be able to share these locations, but also be able to share the history around them. Kind of an interesting fact about each of these locations that we're covering is that they've either not been investigated by the public before or potentially not open for that, or they've been open less than 2 years.
Oh, interesting. So do you find, are more and more of these county jails starting to explore their paranormal side? Like, do you feel like that's starting to happen?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a fairly decent trend, and I've visited a couple over the years. One of the locations is actually one that I did visit 2 years ago. It was brand new on the scene. I was one of the first investigators there. But as these jails transition to new jails opening, finding a new use or a new life for them is something that is extremely exciting. It's what we've done here with the historic Scott County Jail, but we're seeing that with some of the others because a lot of these jails have been open since, the late 1800s, maybe the early 1900s, and they had a very, very long life, but due to the construction, the lack of, fire suppression systems, different things, they didn't keep up with the times for, to be, I guess, humane for the inmates that are in there. I kind of laugh when I say that because, I've got my own opinion on
we all have our opinions
how that life should be. It's a little too comfy and a little too plush now anyways, but some of these locations, I mean, they're just, they're like being in the dark ages, some of them. And so they did have to close. New jails had to be built. And so there's a lot of them that sit around and don't have a purpose. Some of them, their local historical archives or chamber of commerce are in now. Others, they're just kind of sitting abandoned. Some are museums. So yeah, it's kind of a cool thing to be able to show that that you can give new life and a new purpose to these old buildings.
You really can. And how is your escape room going?
It's going good. Good. I think it's one of those things that, the weather's starting to get a little cooler down here. We've still got some nice days going on, some good riding days. And in fact, we had a couple bikers in today, but, I think it's really going to pick up even more as the weather gets cooler and it gets dark earlier. So,
well, I can't wait to see more posts. Every time somebody posts they're in the orange jumpsuits, you guys go all out for it. I think it's amazing. I love it. And they all seem to be super excited about it.
Yeah. Well, we've got about a 40-60 escape rate, 40% escape and 60% not. So, so it's right around that ratio right now with the best time to beat being, I think, 13 minutes. We were doing a little special here during October for first people to book that can do it less than 13 minutes. We're giving a jail t-shirt to that group.
Fun. How fun.
That sounds fun.
But I'm not your friend in an escape room. Like, if you were like, okay, figure it out, I'd be like,
we no,
me neither. Me neither. I mean, Chris has done an amazing job putting these puzzles together. I think there's
Yeah.
about 22 puzzles that
Oh.
the people have that they can do to try to escape from
Yeah.
the cell block, because there's multiple cells you have to escape from
Oh, okay.
in this one. And for me, I do the back end, do the marketing work,
Yeah.
do the graphic design work on it. But when it comes to solving puzzles, I tend to fixate
Yeah.
on certain areas, and that's probably Chris that's commenting there. 13 minutes to spare. Oh wait, no, it's not. It's 13 minutes. You have to finish it in. It would be 13 minutes to spare. Yeah. So, but anyways, so I can't do the math. It would be like 47 minutes to
Oh,
have it
see, you're asking
completed
me
in
to do
47
math, and
minutes.
that's the problem. I
Yeah.
feel like escape rooms, they're like word problems, and I just
See, that's me. It's an instant math
yeah,
problem.
yeah,
So I'm a good one to come in there with a group, and it's like, Miranda, complete this little task
yeah,
of the escape room. So
yeah,
I can sit there and complete the task while the
yeah.
others are
Figuring
looking at
out.
the big picture. Because I
Yeah.
tend to, and I think it's because I'm an artist and a
Yeah,
designer, that I tend to want to focus on the details.
yeah,
And so I can use a decoder ring or use something like that, but the
yeah,
whole big picture, you'd probably be
yeah,
stuck in here till the next day if you were depending
yeah.
on me.
I'm just gonna have to serve my time in jail because
Yeah.
I'm not breaking out. It's just not
Yeah.
happening. So Miranda and I have talked extensively about the subject that we wanted to talk about tonight. And I was really excited to get you on here to talk about it for a couple reasons. One, I respect the hell out of you as a peer in paranormal. I
Thank
think
you.
you're an amazing investigator. You're an even more amazing content creator. And it's something that we've always talked about. And it is content creators and just the whole industry, the industry in a whole. It's just an interesting topic to me. And so we kind of wanted to dive into this because sometimes, just FYI, sometimes when Miranda and I talk, we solve the world's problems.
True.
But
Very
we
true.
can't seem to solve this problem. So, but we wanted to give a little insight as to content creators, and we're all doing it in some form. Dee Dee and I have the show. I think even just as a paranormal team, if you have a page, Illusions from the Other Side of the Road and VP Paranormal and Ghost Biker Explorer, like any, you're putting stuff out there for people to consume.
Yeah.
And this is not an easy task.
Right.
And so I thought this was a really great opportunity to sort of talk about content creators in the life of one, because I think as more people funnel through, it is interesting to see. I mean, I've been at this for a while. Miranda, what is your time frame here as a content creator? You're in your number what?
As far as Ghost Biker, it would be 5 years, but I was doing the content creation when I joined the team.
Yeah.
And I was with the team. I've been with the team just under 15 years. So, so I probably started doing content creation, I guess maybe around 2012 or 13.
Okay.
And that part really involves sort of like quick clips and then doing the marketing and stuff on the social media side. Any evidence that they found that we were putting out, I was going in and creating the content for that. So yeah, so I would safely say probably, I don't know, maybe 10, 11 years.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you've put your time in, and I'm just gonna say it. I'm not afraid to say this. Ghost Bikers should have numbers that are out of this world for
Yeah.
followers, right? This
Well,
is
thank you.
and for
Great,
views. This
yeah.
is amazing content.
Yeah.
And where we kind of go with this is, it's not always the quality of
Right.
what's being put out there. The consumers and what the consumers want. It plays such a role in this, right? And I think for me, I want to start with this. So you have a body of work like Ghost Biker Seasons. They are beautifully done, produced, the quality, the sound, the content, the history. You don't fall victim to making sure you have all the crazy activity. You're giving what you got,
Mhm.
and a lot of times you're in these locations which should be selling by the millions alone.
Yeah.
You're alone in a lot of these locations. That itself is
Yeah.
amazing content. Um, so let's start with the trends that
Mhm.
content creators sort of need to follow in order to get the numbers. How do you feel about having to keep up with these trends that, by the way, who the hell is telling us this is the trend? Who's
Yeah.
setting this?
That's the thing. It's, content creation is so fluid. It
Mhm,
has been since the beginning. Technology is evolving, by the day, and essentially, and then also these social media platforms or
mhm,
these content platforms are constantly changing what the requirements are
mhm,
for monetization or for for I guess views. Because I mean, personally, I feel like Facebook kind of throttles your views a
mhm,
little bit,
mhm.
to get you to try to
Hmm.
Yeah.
pay for views essentially, or pay for advertising.
Yeah.
So first off, it's kind of like the most important thing is to be fluid, and that can be hard because sometimes it takes time to get your formula put together
Mhm,
for your show.
mhm,
I know when I first started Ghost Biker, of course, everything was different with YouTube back then. Their requirements that they had were a lot more lax.
mhm,
Well, as the evolution of content creation and you had more video producers coming out, they really kind of tightened the reins and locked a lot of stuff down. And you were having to put out more videos.
okay.
And so, so for me, I spent a lot of time when I decided, my background is in marketing. And so I spent a lot of time deciding how I wanted to put this out. And so in the very beginning, because I am a solo investigator or have one other person with me, it was more logical for me to put the episodes out as a season.
Mhm,
And that way I could spend the maximum amount of time researching, investigating, and then going through just the mountains of data that
mhm,
would come in from the investigation, and then going into the production work or the editing of the videos. Well, as times changed, um, putting out just a season,
mhm.
putting out 5 episodes in, over a year, it just doesn't work.
Right,
Yeah.
You lose your, you're no longer relevant.
right.
And then also just with the analytics and
Yeah,
the algorithms
yeah,
that,
Yeah.
yeah,
Facebook and YouTube, you know, if you're not putting something out every week,
yeah,
then you're not staying relevant on the search engines, and you're also not staying relevant or on the social media platforms, and
yeah.
you're not staying relevant with your consumers of what you're putting out.
Yeah.
I find it interesting. We've been really blessed, especially with Paranormally Blonde. I think we have such an amazing core group of people that have
Mhm.
really stuck with us and have been very consistent. But as far as new growth, I mean, let's be honest, even for YouTube subscribers for ourselves, we're only at
Mhm.
391 and we're going on year number 2.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to me because I feel like when I get out there and I talk to people, on Instagram, be it other shows
Mhm.
or investigators or an enthusiast, they know who we are, and
Mhm.
they
Yeah.
they want to participate, and which I love. I think that speaks volumes. But the unfortunate part is it's that number that sits right there in your face that everybody really holds a
Mhm.
lot of weight.
It
Mhm.
does. Yeah.
Yeah, and you've got different types of content creators too. Not just the different types when it comes to putting out a show, doing a
Right,
live show versus a recorded show. You also have the type that the numbers are a focus of theirs because
right,
either they've monetized or what have you. The numbers are extremely important. So then a lot of the time, the numbers shapes their content
right.
because they're almost having to up their level
Mhm,
every time to keep those people watching.
right.
So that kind of changes the game too. But I mean, that's why I started doing a weekly live stream 2 years ago, was because I had 2 seasons out, and a lot of people were reaching out. They were wanting more content.
Right.
And like you, I just have amazing people that watch and tune into the weekly live stream. And so it's a way to kind of work with other content creators. That's what I love to have on my show. I will have investigators on sometimes, but most of the time I won't have investigators on unless they're content creators.
Mhm.
And by content, they may be authors, they may have
Right.
their own podcast or their live stream. And so it just opens up. I'm not going to use the word para-unity because
That doesn't exist.
it's a
people.
stupid word.
It does
it's a
not
stupid
exist. I just
concept.
learned that.
Yeah, but it works in the sense it's a form of para-unity and or not para-unity, but unity in the sense to where it gives the folks who watch my show another place to find other content that they can consume.
Right.
Yeah.
So so that's why I love having other podcasters and other live streamers and stuff on. But essentially for me, it ended up working as a double bonus because I was able to put out a weekly show giving me more content and what I felt was quality content because it's not just, you started having the trend of quantity over quality, at that point. And people would come on, they'd be driving in their car and they would just be a live stream just for the sake of going live,
Right.
Yeah.
just for the sake of staying in front of their viewers and interacting. And so, so I felt like this created quality content where I could also be interactive with the folks who were watching, but then also kind of I was the people who were coming on, it was introducing them to what might be a different audience than what consumes their stuff. But it also brought some of their audience over to me to be able to, see my stuff because maybe the folks that watch your show, they don't know who I am, but
Right.
you're on my show. So they're coming over and seeing that. So it kind of works as a cross promotion.
Yeah. Cross promotion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And here's what's really interesting, right? Like you touched on it. It becomes quality or quantity over quality. And the thing that's very interesting to me, and tell me if I'm wrong, because I'll be honest, at 51, I probably didn't spend too much time worrying about what YouTube was even 5 years ago. Like I didn't care. But what I find interesting is my thought would have been that YouTube was this amazing way for people who were creative and who had, amazing production skills or speaking skills or whatever to go out there and not have to worry about the Hollywood route, right? You're real people doing real things and sharing it out. And what I find interesting about all the platforms is we're suddenly no different. We are constantly chasing a trend to stay relevant, to your point. And now we're not at all being, and you want to talk about another word I really don't like right now? I'm not authentically being me. I am trying to keep up with a trend. And I think this is where TikTok sort of bothers me a little bit.
Yeah.
Not in its entirety. I mean, there's another reason to not like TikTok, but it's in paranormal. I think that TikTok has really sort of hurt shows and or content on these sort of platforms where you get longer pieces, because TikTok trends, that stuff is gone in 3 days. If you didn't do that 3 days ago, you're already behind and there's already a new trend starting. That's not what paranormal is, folks. It's not a trend.
No, because I mean it's pulling up history. If nothing else, it's stepping back. And that's an interesting point that you bring about how long to make something, how short to make something, because so when I sat down and decided that I was going to do ghost biker explorations, well, let me take it back just a little bit further. When I was doing the content creation for the team that I was with, part of the reason I stepped up to do that was it actually really annoyed me that my team would post and say, we're going to be at such and such location. And then that was it. We would say we were there and people be like, well, what happened? What did you get? And so I hated, saying I was going to be somewhere and not kind of having, but let me show you some of the conclusion of why we're there. And then we transitioned into doing lives from the location. And for myself, I kind of I kind of became known for my lives that I would do at these locations. People loved them. You're in the moment.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about going back and producing
That's
anything.
right.
It's here. If something happens, that's
Yeah.
great. But there's an element of creepiness when you're in the location
The suspense.
with that person.
Yeah.
Yeah, just because you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And so when I decided I put probably about 9 months of thought and preparation into the first season of Ghost Biker before I even said anything about putting it out there. And I looked at a ton of content that was out there. And of course, it's changed over the past 5 years. I watched a lot of videos, decided what I did like and what I didn't like.
Yeah.
And so, and then from my research, I'm at my day job of doing content creation. We found that the average person's attention span is right around 20 minutes. And
Probably not
so
anymore.
no, it's honestly not.
Yeah.
And so it's like I wanted something, and to condense an episode into 20 minutes is really hard.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're just stopping at a roadside spot on the middle of a motorcycle ride and doing a mini investigation, maybe it's a 2-hour investigation. That's not so hard, but to take at least, a 12-hour or even an 8-hour investigation, condense 6 different cameras and audio recorders of evidence, as well as the ride, the history, and then still also trying to tell a story, in that time frame. It's a challenge. And so, but I found I wanted something to where, because I don't sit down and spend a lot of time watching stuff. I wanted something to where if somebody was sitting in the office, they could turn it on, they could watch it, or if they really, the only time I watch anything is when I'm sitting down to eat. And so I wanted something that they were going to sit down, capture them during that time frame, but not lose them by saying, oh, this is an hour long. I'm going to watch a few minutes and then never come back to it. We see that in our analytics as content creators. Anyways, you can see when the time starts to taper off with people.
Yeah.
So I wanted to do the 20-minute segments. My first season, each of the episodes, I think the longest episode was maybe 30 minutes.
Okay.
And would have been longer, but I ended up splitting one and doing a 2-parter. And so I found from after doing that first season, there were 6 episodes. I did a live season finale, which that was great because it took pressure off where I didn't have to produce a finale episode. It also didn't matter if anything happened. Plus it created interaction.
Right.
So my episodes drop on Tuesdays. So on Thursdays, I was like, I'm going to do a behind the screams kind of thing to where, because most of the people I found that were watching on my demographics were not paranormal investigators.
Right.
They were maybe enthusiasts or maybe people who were interested for the history. So they didn't know what the equipment was.
Right.
They didn't necessarily know why I chose the technique that I chose there. So I didn't want to devote the real estate in the episode to talking about the tools. So that's why I started doing the Thursday episodes and really going into detail about the equipment. Well, that was popular enough to where the next year I went live doing it instead of just doing a pre-recorded production on it.
Right.
Because those pre-recorded productions that are, say, for instance, 10 to 15 minutes in length talking about the equipment, you're investing 4 or 5 hours anyways in it because you've got, the sit down and record it, and you've got the post-production work and then the upload time to do all that. So a lot of time goes into a small spot, but when you do the live, you get that interaction, and there's just something about that. So we kept that, incorporated that in every season, but we extended it from the 10, 15-minute videos to hour-long video, and we would have the location owners on. We would have, we would talk more about the actual location, kind of breaking that down. And it was a lot of fun to have that interaction, and be able to kind of break that down. But what we found, I even did some surveys afterwards, kind of trying to find out, what do you like? What can I change? How can I make this better? Because I was spending so much time doing all this. I wanted to be putting out what people enjoyed.
Right.
And so people wanted to see longer episodes, which really surprised me.
Mhm.
So now the episodes, I think the longest maybe has been 50 minutes.
Okay.
But they tend to be, I still try to keep them at a max around that, 40, 45-minute mark, but between 20 to 45 minutes.
Okay.
And so when you put in all that time, I mean, that's months of work in editing itself,
Yeah.
to come up there to see, 100 views,
Yeah.
or a low number. It's tough as a content creator for that. And so one of the trends that I've found over the last little bit that's been kind of surprising. And first, just let me say, my channel is not monetized. None of my channels, Facebook or YouTube. I have the numbers on Facebook. I have the numbers where I can monetize.
Okay.
I can monetize on YouTube, but I chose not to. And this is one of those things in really kind of talking about it. One, and of course now there are also places where people can watch on like Paraflix and these other places. I think Amazon, I think a lot of these maybe are more competitive in their pricing than YouTube, but I chose not to go that route because it sets a different expectation for the content that I'm putting out. For me, the content I'm putting out is documenting my paranormal journey, if you will. It's hard sometimes because so much personal goes into it. And if somebody's critical, or if somebody
That's right.
is, or if it's not what someone wants, that's hard because there's that element of personal in it. However, I'm just documenting, doing my thing. You can choose not to watch.
Right.
But, but by monetizing, I feel like it sets a different expectation from the for the audience that's watching. If they're paying, or I mean, if you're getting paid, the bar keeps getting raised.
Right.
I go to a lot of locations that may or may not have activity. I choose the locations I go to based on the history and the story. So if there's not activity, at least it's interesting enough that someone may say, hey, I want to go visit there. But I just think it creates, because I've heard of several really big content creators that have been caught faking or over dramatizing things. And I think it's because of the expectation that the consumer puts on.
Well,
yeah, I agree.
Well, okay. So we say it's the expectation. And I think that's something, Miranda, we've talked about where, are we upset with who the consumer is and what they're wanting, or are we just not like, what hoop am I jumping through? Right. But here's the thing. They get caught. They know there is, I think there is difference in paranormal. I mean, we've got the TV network Paranormal. That is to make a network a lot of money. Let's first and foremost, that those shows wouldn't last if the networks weren't getting deals. I mean, that's just how that works. And YouTube's very much the same way. You make that choice, like you said. Am I going to do something because I need all the numbers and I want to get to that point? Or am I going to stay true? And I think, Dee Dee, you and I have even had that conversation. How do we stay to who we are and what it is we're doing? And I think there is a place for it.
Absolutely.
But it is a very frustrating. I think it can be frustrating. And I just want to put this out here too. For some reason, these platforms, and I'm even guilty of saying this back in the day. And now that I'm a content creator and as such, you kind of start to go, you know what? Just because you can, you shouldn't. Just because something's out on a public platform doesn't mean you have to be a dick about how you come at somebody. To your point, don't watch me. You don't like me, don't watch me.
Yeah.
But what do people say? Well, you put it up there for public consumption.
Yeah.
Okay,
right.
But you don't have to be an ass. I mean, that's
yeah. I mean, and that was, I struggled. A lot of people, I mean, I'm very, not so much now, but I used to be very, very introverted and very bad social anxiety. I was very, very comfortable behind the camera rather than in front of it. And that was one of my concerns when I started to do this, was it's like, do I want to put something out there that people can be overly critical about? Because
Right.
again, everyone has an opinion.
Always so.
I've been very, very fortunate that,
Yeah.
I've not received, negative, comments, or they've been very, very, very few. So you have to think about that. You
Yeah.
are putting yourself out there, whether it be a podcast or a show. But it in the end, I decided, to go for it. But it kind of leads me to one of the new trends that are not really trends, but one of the things I've really noticed at this point is that, I think it's more about necessarily the content rather than the quality of the video production that's being put out there.
Yeah.
Because I've seen some this is just my opinion. I've seen some
We're
crap.
just talking. Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen some crap out there,
Mhm.
and that's literally it's not produced. And I'm
Right.
not even really talking about paranormal. I'm talking
Yeah.
about
In general.
history
Right.
or
Right.
different, I think it's about the audience and the
Mhm.
type of content that's being put out rather than how beautifully produced it is. So that makes me always stop and think, because I've always been very proud of how well produced the episodes of Ghost Biker are, and the time that it takes to put these episodes out.
Yeah.
But then I look at it and I'm like,
Yeah.
is all that time necessary when you don't get the views or the shares or
Yeah.
the.
Well, and here's the thing, the thing with TikTok, if you go to a lot of these, especially, I'll just put it out there for the paranormal people, when you look at the paranormal TikToks, the thing that, if somebody really cared, and I feel like us older, more mature people probably can explore this a little bit more, the younger people don't care. They're only taking these little snippets, and that's where they're getting most of their views. But
Yes,
and it's not even always their own content.
Yeah.
that's right. I mean, reaction videos,
Yeah.
I laugh at the meme of,
Yeah.
Milli Vanilli,
Yeah.
talking, where they got
Yeah.
in trouble for lip syncing, and
Yeah.
that's all people do now with TikTok. I've just kind of started, putting a few little things on
Yeah.
there. I was just down at the Deep South Paracon, and I was talking to another content creator down there, Bigfoot Anon, and Connor was like, I don't know why you're not doing TikTok. He's like, you have so much evidence that you could
Yeah.
turn into these tiny snippets. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, that's true. I mean, I have a TikTok page. And right now TikTok it's the most searched. It gets more searches
Yeah.
for things than Google, which is amazing to me,
Yeah.
and you've got these people that personally, I think it's a matter of time before TikTok really kind of tightens the reins, just like YouTube and Facebook did, because you've
Right.
got these people with millions of followers now and millions of views. I think it's a matter of time before they lock that down to where there's only the top, 3% that, are really excelling at that or making any money off that. The way I fund my episodes, because, speaking of monetization with these platforms, I fund my episodes through, I go to a lot of Paracons and do a lot
Yeah.
of speaking events.
Yeah.
I also have my online store where, I do artwork and drawings. And so
Yeah.
that's how I
Yeah.
fund my stuff.
Yeah. And I think that's just, it's such an interesting, it's such an interesting world, because you can have somebody, and I've personally have run into this when, you talk to somebody and you say, oh yeah, I have a show. Oh, what's your show? And you talk about it. And then they go to your YouTube page and they go, oh, I'm 391 people.
Yeah.
And they judge you on that instead of judging you on the show itself.
Instead of watching the show, as soon as they see the number, they're
Yeah.
out. And see, I'm the opposite, because I'm a rebel. As soon as I see someone has 1 million views, I'm out.
Yeah.
I always want to see people, because I feel like people, generally speaking, Miranda would be the exception, because your stuff is like the best quality that you see out there.
Well, thank you.
I mean, really, I look
Yeah.
at my stuff and I'm like, oh my God. But I'm literally just fooling around. But I want to see people when they're raw and they're new,
Yes.
and it's more authentic.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. And as soon as people are getting millions of views, they really are. It's just like, it's all a bunch of BS. They're not
Yeah.
even, they don't even care. They've lost sight of their own passion, I believe, for paranormal.
Mhm.
It's just about making money because now it's become a job, you know?
And you see those people who,
Mhm.
I mean, let's just take in Miranda, we had this conversation not that long ago. You know, you take their urbex explorers
Yeah.
who, right, the urban explorers who go out there
Yeah.
and they were doing their own thing, and then what became a popular paranormal, and then they move
Yep.
over and they and
Mhm.
listen, the world ain't fair, and it is all a big competition, but it's interesting how they can then get in, right? They get in
Yeah.
and they've already got the bazillions of views, and they push out the paranormal people who have
Mhm.
been clawing and scratching their way up the ladder
Mhm.
just to be somebody in that community, to interact with the other people.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's the difference in seeing, because like we talk about with, say, content creators, for
Yeah.
instance, with the paranormal investigators. I mean, you've got so many different types. You've got the
Yeah.
YouTubers
Yeah.
that they're almost like the shock jocks, if you will, most of the time. So they're the YouTubers, and then a lot of them have crossed into the paranormal genre there. But then you've also got I don't want to call them scientific investigators, but the ones that are out there,
Mhm.
the true investigators, I
Yeah.
guess,
Yeah.
and you could lump some ghost hunters into that group,
Yeah.
but the ones that are going out, spending the time at these specific locations. And then, just the urbexers in general, because I do know a few urbexers who don't just document what they're doing, but they do some production
Right.
in it as well. And I tend to think with mine, because when I or what kind of got me started was I was doing urbexing, but I was doing urbexing through photography rather than doing
Right.
urbexing through video. And I tend to think of mine as kind of a hybrid in a
Right.
way, because they are produced. I like to keep the history as slick and polished as possible. Make
Right.
that look really nice with the B-roll. But when it comes to the investigations, I don't touch the investigations. The
Yeah.
only editing that I do on that is I will go in and I'll put captions over
Right.
what I think I hear, because I
Right.
want to keep that raw and keep that integrity of the investigation. But you see the two different kinds, where a lot of the YouTubers, they go in and essentially they stick their logo in the bottom corner. They may have a little intro, but it's very raw,
Yeah.
minus, some type of shock that they're trying to do. And then the other shows, I mean, they're just all produced. So
Right.
it's kind of a, you know, where are you going to spend your time?
Yeah.
And I know for content creators, when you're spending all that time polishing up the content and putting it out there, and then you see other people that they can put out kind of a subpar video,
Yeah.
but the topic is something that is of great interest. I mean, they're going to get, some of
Yeah.
them will get millions of views for
Look
that.
at all the
you know.
Jeffrey Dahmer stuff right now.
Yeah.
I even got sucked into watching a couple
Mhm.
of, and it had
Yeah.
millions of views, but for some reason they pulled me in and I was watching it, and it wasn't even, it was just a court. They were replaying somebody else's content again. It was
Yeah.
the original court footage, because I wanted to hear what the guy who was the one guy who did escape from him. And so you do get sucked in, but then afterwards you almost feel like kind of gross.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
oh, that was just somebody else's stuff I'm
Yeah.
watching. And that's my pet peeve is,
Mhm.
I mean, I've had somebody use but they asked me, can I
Yeah.
use this?
Yeah.
And they credit you. And I feel like
Yeah.
that's different. But if you're just taking other people's content and just putting it out there and you're monetizing it and
Mhm.
not doing anything, I don't like that.
Yeah, well, for a while, debunking videos
Yeah.
were
Yes.
huge, and I believe a lot of that came from people trying these monetized channels. I mean, you could look at it as an ego trip for some of them, because I mean, why are you going debunking someone else's stuff,
Yeah.
But I mean, but I think it was essentially one of these where people, they have these monetized channels,
Yeah.
and they're looking to just have more quantity.
Yeah.
So they're
Yep.
going in and they're just sitting in front of a mic and they're playing other people's stuff, throwing
Yeah.
off on them. And I mean, that was for at least from 2020 and 2021, that was huge. And
Yeah.
maybe it was because people weren't getting out and
Right.
able to
Yeah.
They figured
create.
out a way to keep
Yeah.
relevant. Yeah, I think it's a very, it's such an interesting world, and we don't know what everybody's motivation is behind content creating and why you continue to do what you do. And like I said, Dee Dee and I throw this idea around every so often, like, okay, why are we doing this? And, you know, the numbers, I don't stare at the numbers a lot, but then I feel like I do hyper focus on them like every so often. And I realize like, wow, like, okay, for instance, our Instagram, I solely run the Instagram for Paranormally Blonde, and we've been at 14 something for a while, and it will ramp up, and then I just bleed followers, and it's like, where are they going? Like, what is that number happening? And I think, Miranda, we talked about this, you know, hitting like and hitting follow is awesome, and it is always appreciated. But I think the unfortunate part, and as to your point with how the platforms change sort of how things happen, that really doesn't help a content creator very much anymore.
It doesn't. Facebook just eliminated the premiere option. And so that sucks because the last 2 seasons, season 3 and season 4, I've dropped my episodes as a premiere. So that allows me to sit like what we're doing right now and comment and kind of watch it together and build the hype up for it. They just stopped that. Now, I'm not really sure if they're going to maybe essentially create a paid platform. That might be the reason. Now, YouTube still has it. But I mean, that's a change there. And 2, you know, I kind of think with the way these platforms change, it's causing the content creators to change. It's causing the consumers to change. And it's causing them to change the way that they view things. And I feel like the paranormal industry is so super saturated right now. And so you have a lot of options whenever
you couldn't possibly watch every single person you like. Your job would be to watch YouTube all day long, right?
Exactly. And so that kind of leads to, you know, the question that you know, the Facebook user has on there, you know, the way to support. So those comments, especially take, for instance, Instagram, the comments are huge, you know, putting a comment on there. On same thing when it comes to Facebook and YouTube, commenting on that stuff, that causes them to rise to the top, and you're continually seeing them. But what I was going to say before I got off on that was that, you know, I feel like sometimes that consumers don't give enough grace to content creators. You know,
and what we don't understand, right? What if you don't understand the amount of time and effort that somebody puts in there, you'll have somebody say, well, I don't understand why you don't have this going on, or why, you know, this was supposed to be out and now it's not out. Well, why not? Well, I'm also a living human being that has a business and, you know, has a home and a family. And so, I am giving what I can give. And especially when you're not monetized, when you're not making money to support yourself.
You're doing it out of love and passion, and you want to share.
And so people, I mean, it's amazing how if you have a guest that somebody doesn't necessarily like, especially if you're a weekly show, they're like, oh, I didn't like that. You know, I'm going to move on, you know, or
out of sight, out of mind. If you happen to be down a week, and we say that all the time, you're down a week and then they're like, guess they're gone. It's like, no, we're not.
I mean, if, you know, keeping that, I mean, cause I think that's, you know, that's one of the problems. If you do miss, you know, it's easy to say, you know, I'll be on next week, but it does hurt the response. And then some users, it's almost like you don't mess with people's programs, you know, when they've got their, you know, their Monday nights or their Tuesday nights are, you know, 7 o'clock, that's what they sit down and do. You know, you don't mess with that. And it is hard because these do take time, and it adds a lot of pressure, and people, like I said, people, all of a sudden your followers will disappear. And, you know,
well, and here's the other thing, you know, if you look at the shows and you see some stuff out there, like you said, if the quality's not there, then of course they can whip something out and it's there, and, you know, whatever. But when, you know, and I feel like with you, with Dr. Sumner, with Soul Sisters, I really do feel like with us, there's more, there's definitely more. You know, I don't know them all. I'm just going to speak to the people that I know personally. But, you know, the amount of love and devotion that we do have for what we do, you know, when something doesn't feel right, or if it didn't come out just the way you wanted to share with everybody, sometimes what you had hoped would come out on
Mhm.
time just can't.
Yeah.
And but I think that's kind of where, with content creation, to your point, with people moving on so fast, you know, we have been so blessed because the people that we've had really do stick by us, and
Yes.
I am so grateful to those people that do come in and help us out. But you know, with what we're seeing with people in and out, the shows change, people's, you know, our attention spans have shortened.
Mhm.
We have very, I think we have become so self-centered in what we do
Mhm.
and what we consume. And again, not every show is going to be for every person, and we know that as
Right.
content creators, we know that we can't please everyone. I absolutely cannot. I eventually am going to say something that's going to piss somebody off. It's going to happen. But you know, why have we gotten so sensitive to that? Like, you can't just, like you said, like, if you have a guest that you don't love, but why wouldn't you give it a chance to say, you know what,
Mhm.
I know how the blondes talk to people, maybe this person will come across a
Mhm.
little different this time. Or you know,
Mhm.
why do we get so you
Yeah.
Well,
know,
but come back, at least come back,
yeah,
Yeah.
afterwards, because I mean, there are times it doesn't take very long to develop a habit.
yeah,
If it's like missing 1 week, I missed last week,
yeah,
so, it's not gonna hurt this week. And that is the beauty of the content creation that we put out there,
yeah,
is that it's not like a one and done type thing.
right,
You can go back and watch over time.
yeah,
But, the sharing, telling your friends about it, and
yeah,
actually, if actually watching something, those watch hours,
yeah,
um, you know,
huge. That's another
visiting
huge
those
thing.
locations,
Yeah,
doing all that stuff. Those are the things that really help
yeah.
as far as, as a content creator.
And it is, when you look at the analytics, it can be very disappointing to go, "Oh, the longest people watch my video is 30 seconds."
Yeah.
Like,
Well, that's what they say. It's like the first couple
yeah,
of seconds,
yeah,
they're either going to stay or they're going to
yeah,
move on. Like, that's
yeah,
so crucial. And it's hard to
yeah,
know what is that one thing I can say.
There is, yeah. So for me with Ghost Biker, I've been under two network contracts. Now, they didn't end up going anywhere, but the very first one was when I was with Josh, and we were picked up under a network contract. Um, and filming that sizzle reel,
yeah,
we actually got through four different meetings with Travel, when Travel was Travel
yeah,
Channel, and that was after the first season. And so the big thing when we were working with the production company to
yeah,
be seen, was first 3 seconds.
yeah,
You've
yeah,
got to capture in that first 3 seconds the
Yeah.
attention, because they go through so many different
yeah.
videos. It's the same situation here. I consider it, I mean, an amazing thing if someone chooses to spend an hour with
That's
me, or if
right.
somebody chooses to spend the time to watch my video.
Yeah,
I can, regardless of how much time I spend putting it together, if somebody chooses to devote that time and
yeah,
then just kind of say, hey, I checked it out, I enjoyed
yeah,
it, or whatever,
that's
Yeah.
right.
to me, that's huge.
Yeah.
And that's how I think that a lot of people, kind of model their watching style, is the
Yeah,
same way that those network or those production
yeah,
companies and those network channels do, is within that first few
yeah.
minutes.
That's a lot of pressure. So, you know,
Yeah.
just so we can sort of this conversation, we're just scratching the surface.
Yeah.
There's so much more to say, and we only have an hour, because as we've learned, the attention span has probably already been over like 54 minutes ago. I don't know. But you know, it is so true. You know, please, yes, obviously, like, follow, share that out, you know, but talk with all of us, you know,
Yeah. The
comment.
comments.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know, we're really good about responding back, you know,
Mhm.
Yeah.
because it is what we love to see, because then we know that you are there and you see us and hear us, and we want to hear and see you too.
Yep.
That is really giant. And you know, and support the outside efforts that
Yeah.
these content creators do, because that outside stuff, shapes and forms what we're doing here within our content sharing with you. So, it's just, and give us a chance. If we get a sick week, don't go bye-bye. Come back, make sure you come back. And I think the reality for a lot of us out there, Miranda, Dr. Sumner, like the people that I do know, I do know that you truly do appreciate and love the people that do come on and support. It's there, it's obvious. We wouldn't keep doing this.
That's
Again,
right.
we're not getting lots of money per episode. We're not monetized either. We don't, our channel isn't. So we do it because we love to share and what we love with everybody, and to learn and to learn from each other.
I stand by the fact, I've said this all along, that one of the best things, other than the historical preservation of these locations, I think the best thing that's come out of the paranormal community have been these content creators.
Yeah.
It was, back in the 80s when the big, VHS recorder, when that came out and you had all these people with their home movies. I mean, this has been the biggest surge since that, of people who are going out, they're learning the programs, they're learning, how to put these videos together, good, bad, or not. It's like, that's one of the best things I think that's come out, because it does get the word out about these locations. It does show that people are going out and doing things in the travel and tourism. And it also creates that ability for things for people to consume, and then have a conversation about afterwards.
And that's just it, right? It makes the world a little bit smaller to share in it. And it's huge. We're just, honestly touching and scratching the surface of this, but let's keep this conversation going on our platforms. Shoot over to Ghost Biker, ask some questions, go to Paranormally Blonde, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, go on there, ask us some questions. We'll post some stuff out there for you guys to also, like, what is it you guys want to see? Again, every show has a different audience, and everybody does want to consume something a little bit different. I think that I'm just gonna say it. I'm not a huge fan of these tiny short videos. I don't think that there's a real place for it in paranormal. I think you lose so much, and you mislead so many people as to what paranormal is with these quick 30-second videos. Hey, maybe they're fun, and maybe that's how they need to be sold. This is just a fun little moment that means nothing to paranormal.
Maybe, if you can use it in conjunction with a promo to have a larger conversation. I mean, because paranormal is more than that. And I think that's why that's been harder for me to jump on. I do like the quick clips, and I'm hoping next year to do more static camera, quick clip stuff. But that just lends to a larger conversation, because then when people see that, it's like, who, what, when, why, and where. And so if you can't, express all of that, to me, it just leaves more questions. So if those questions lead you to my page and leads us to have a conversation and to watch the longer videos, then it's worth it. But to me, otherwise, I'm not built that way.
I think the younger people seem to not ask those questions, and that's where I think the problem is. It's not, all over. But please go back. We've got, I think you said 2 days for the premiere. Day and a half now, whatever, for Ghost Biker season 5.
Time tomorrow night.
So we're going to check that out. Please, everybody, go to Ghost Biker Explorations. It's going to be a fantastic season. Continued success to you and Dr. Sumner on the historic Scott County Jail and your escape room. I am so excited to see all the new things that you guys do. I love that. And I know you've got some stuff coming up. The thing you had planned for this last weekend is now pushed out for a couple weekends.
Yes, the 14th, 15th, and 16th. Yes. So that is a big way that you can support the content creators. So we do a lot of Ghost Biker events. And just to wrap this one up that's coming up, it's in London, Kentucky. It's a partnership with Wildcat Harley Davidson and the London Laurel Tourism Commission. It's a full 3-day weekend, Friday meet and greet, and kind of talk about what we do at the Harley Davidson. Saturday, we've got a motorcycle ride where we're stopping at 4 different locations. It's about a 4-hour ride. I think it's about 148 miles. And then that evening is going to be an investigation, limiting it down to 14 people so we can keep it small and intimate. And excuse me, and that's going to be at the Levi Jackson Wilderness Road Park. And excuse me, getting choked up. And then on Sunday, we're touring the Great Saltpeter Cave there in London, Kentucky. And they only open that one time a year where they have thousands of people come in. They're opening it special for us, and it's going to be a 2-hour cave tour. And that is free. The only thing with a cost is the paranormal investigation. And
excuse me, and she's out.
And all the money for that is $40. The money goes to the Shop with a Cop program.
Awesome. Well, guys, please support Ghost Biker Exploration and, of course, your favorite blondes.
Yeah.
We want to continue to entertain you and to share with you and for you to share with us. Guys, tomorrow, 8:00 p.m. Eastern Time, please check out Hell House and High Spirits of Palmerton. You want to see that? And I've now gone over an hour. Not used to that. So thank you guys for staying on the side and chatting with us. Miranda, thank you so much. We love you. And of course, we'll have more conversations. Dee Dee, as always, thank you. Great show. We will see you guys next Monday.
Bye.
Bye.